guys, I want to start this week by just jumping right into the scripture. I think it's a really compelling story about Jesus, and I think it needs no introduction. So let's look at John 8, 3-6, and then we're going to stop kind of in the middle of verse 6. All right, so this is Jesus. We find Jesus talking to some teachers. It says this: as he was speaking, the teachers of religious law and the Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught in the act of adultery. They put her in front of the crowd. "Teacher," they said to Jesus, "this woman was caught in the act of adultery. The law of Moses says to stone her. What do you say?" They were trying to trap him into saying something that they could use against him. So what's happening here? Let's dive in. Jesus was in the middle of this tense encounter with some of the religious leaders called Pharisees in Israel at the time. Pharisees, they were a big deal, but they also thought they were a big deal. Basically, they were just these religious people that had power, and they thought they were better than everybody else. I mean, that's an easy way to talk about it. So when Jesus came around and started spending time with people the Pharisees had branded as sinners, or people who weren't as close to God as they were, things got tense. They began to set traps for Jesus, like it says in the scripture, to discredit and expose him as a fake. They were trying to take him down because they didn't like all the attention he was getting. During one of these encounters, after some people had gathered to listen to Jesus teach in the temple, the Pharisees caught this woman in, let's say, an R-rated situation. And so they dragged her in front of Jesus to see how he would handle the punishment. The text says that this woman had been caught in the act. So she was guilty. She was also probably humiliated. The law demanded that people throw rocks at her until she died. That's how it was back then. And so the religious leaders wanted to make Jesus choose in front of a crowd of people. Was he either going to overlook her sin and ignore the law of Moses, which that would take away from Jesus' credibility as a teacher, and it would anger the religious leaders? Or was he going to allow her to be stoned, showing that he was no different from the Pharisees, so that the people would reject him? It was a trap. The leaders knew it was a trap. That was the point. Let's hit pause on the story and talk about why we do the exact same thing as these Pharisees. I'm not talking about demanding people to be stoned, but I am talking about judging. What they've just done is make a judgment call about her reputation. We do this all the time too. In school we say things like, every rich kid is like this. Or even like, people that go live on Instagram are this. Or even the white kids or the black kids, the Hispanic kids, the Asian kids, they do this. That's the kind of stereotypes and prejudices we're talking about. Even though we don't say them out loud, or at least we shouldn't, we all tend to fill in the blanks about other people, to assume we know what to expect from them now and what they're capable of, and how they'll respond in any situation. In other words, how we fill in the blank now determines what we expect from them next. All people do this. It's not just a teenager thing. It's everybody. Everybody does this, and it needs to stop. So where does it come from? Where do these assumptions come from? Well, for me, it comes from two places. It comes from more than that, but I want to focus on two: experiences and insecurities. So what I mean by experiences is, I mean, like, maybe you had a bad experience with somebody who reminds you of a certain type of person. And then what I mean by insecurities is, sometimes our assumptions are formed from insecurity. So the person we're filling in a blank about has something that we want or we wish we had. We automatically assume the worst about them because it reminds us how far we feel from being the best. Our limited experiences and insecurities cause us to fill in the blanks and convince ourselves that we know way more about somebody than we do, that we can literally predict their future. It can be a problem if we really want to be known for love rather than hate, right? Because, to be honest, we don't often fill in the blanks about people with something nice. The ironic part is that we hate it when someone else does this to us. So how do we resist the temptation to do the same thing to others? All right, let's take a look back at the story. So we're in John 8, 6-11, and it says this: "But Jesus stooped down and he wrote in the dust with his finger. They kept demanding an answer. So he stood up again and said, 'All right, but let the one who has never sinned throw the first stone.' Then he stooped down again and wrote in the dust. When the accusers heard this, they slipped away one by one, beginning with the oldest, until only Jesus was left in the middle of the crowd with the woman. Then Jesus stood up again and said to the woman, "Where are your accusers? Didn't even one of them condemn you?" And I love this. I love what she says here. She says, "No, Lord," she said. And Jesus said, "Neither do I. Go and sin no more." So she called him Lord there. She's acknowledging who he is. Everyone was guilty of something, both the religious leaders and the woman in the story. And Jesus had a message for both of them. What is possible for your future isn't determined by your past. Not if you're a Pharisee and not if you're the woman. Both are guilty, and both were free to go. Both had a reputation for being one way, and both can choose to leave differently than they arrived. Jesus forgave and challenged her to change by saying, "Go and sin no more," because no matter her reputation, he believed change was possible for her. But it goes further than that. Jesus responded in love to everyone in the situation. And that's exactly what you and I should be all about. But isn't it true that sometimes we're more like the religious leaders? Don't we often fill in the blanks about other people based on their behavior all the time? Don't we tend to assume we already know what will happen next in their story because of what has happened before, or even what we think they may have done? But Jesus' approach to the situation in the story teaches us something different. See, Jesus saw the woman for more than just this one thing she had done. He believed something was possible in her future, no matter her past. He didn't decide who she was because of what she had been caught doing. He didn't fill in the blank for her, even though he knew everything about her. He saw her as a whole person. And as a whole person, he saw her as being deserving of another chance. Jesus proved that we are more than the assumptions or judgments others make about us. We are worthy of forgiveness, grace, and a second chance because of his love for us. And we can extend the same forgiveness, grace, and love to others too. What if this was the approach that you and I started to take when forming our opinions about other people? What if instead of filling in the blanks with assumptions and judgments, we chose to believe anyone could radically change? What if we believed anyone could surprise us and be far better than we think they are? What if we chose to let love fill in the blank? Our job isn't to make judgments on people. It's to see people as children of God bearing the image of Christ, regardless of their past. In other words, when we fill in the blank with love, we're seeing others as humans. More than what they have or haven't done, but as individuals, as people whose story is not over, whose story maybe isn't even written yet. When the opportunities for assumptions and judgments start flying at you, take these steps towards a new approach. 1, you can stop and think about how others have filled in the blanks about you. When you make an assumption about someone, about how they are or what they'll do, stop. Stop and think about your own life. How have you experienced the other side of someone filling in the blank? Remember, Jesus' forgiveness brought you to a place where your life started to change for the better. Then treat other people like the way Jesus has treated you, with grace and love, assuming their best days can be ahead of them. Think about how you've wrongly filled in the blanks for someone else. This is the second thing. Who is someone you think you know, but you really don't? Who have you filled in the blanks in? Who have you filled the blanks in for in a negative way without learning the whole story about them? What if you chose to fill in the blanks about them with Jesus' brain of compassion? What if you chose to let love fill the blank for what we think about someone now and what we expect for them in the future? This is especially important in church. Maybe you assume that you don't belong there, or that somebody else doesn't belong there, or that somebody will never change, or that people like that person or people like yourself will never change. Statements like those, as easy as they are to make, they take all of the Christ out of Christianity. There's no Jesus in them. And so they should have no place here in us. Remember, Jesus made it so clear with the woman, with the Pharisees, and with everyone he met, that love never fills in the blank with never. There's always hope for change. When we choose to follow Jesus' example and take these steps, we're choosing to let love fill in the blank, instead of our quick or shallow assumptions and judgments about who they are now and who they can become. Just imagine with me what would happen if this is how we spent our time forming opinions of those around us. Instead of assumptions, stereotypes, and preconceived notions based on a part of a person, we would be people who believed everyone is worthy of love and has a hope for a great future. If this is really what Jesus is about, doesn't it cause you to be a little more interested in Him? We can be people who let love fill in the blank about others. When we do this, we will be known for our love for others, just like Jesus was, and just like Jesus intended for His people to be.